So we'll continue on here. I have the intake manifold is mounted, and I have the fuel rails mounted, as you can see, and the fuel injectors all hooked up. This is where I ended up putting the idle air temperature sensor right in the side so that it's going to catch as it goes right inside. That'll catch the idle air temperature for the computer. I have my fuel rails all bolted up, and the gauges are sort of in place. I'm just trying to plan the plumbing right now. The valve covers are just sitting there so I don't drop anything into the oil returns. That's the last thing you want to have happen, is to drop something in the engine at this point. So I'm actually going to have to put a cover on top there so I don't drop anything inside the intake. So now I'll be putting on the timing chain cover and the water pump. Now with the timing chain cover mounted, I have a real nice billet pointer here for the timing pointer. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my balancer on and I'm going to draw it right in with my impact wrench. Okay, I have my pulley mounted and I have the timing marker mounted here, but there was considerable interference between the marker and the water pump, so I had to do a little work to get that marker fitting in there just right. And also you can see the water pump is very, very close to the balancer, and I have to give a little clearance there, grind out the bottom of the water pump just to get that to fit. The problem I'm having right now, and what I need to do is I need to cut the spacers here for the alternator bracket. The other problem I have is when I put this bolt in like this, the bolt for the alternator bracket is just a little bit too short to go in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make my own bolts. I'm going to make two bolts here. I'm going to make one out of stainless steel and one, or they're both going to be made out of stainless steel. One different size. One's going to be the larger bolt for the alternator, and one's going to go into the other part of the bracket to hold on the alternator through the water pump. So we'll have that. I got one longer bolt I'm making for the pulley up here where the alternator will get mounted, and I need a longer bolt down here because this bolt simply isn't long enough. Okay, I have my spacers machined for my alternator bracket, and they came out very well. Also have to make a space for that rod end that's going to go to the back of the alternator, and those brackets came out pretty cool. I'm working on the alternator right now, but I have to work on this helicoil for this head. I'm having a hard time getting the right size to fit. So I got to work on that before I can put the alternator in. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the valve covers on now, and just to show you what I did, I put I powder coated blue inside the fins and inside the whole Ford Racing and the 427 Cobra area, and it looks really, really cool. You can see I got it right to the edge, and it goes all the way around, and I'm really, really pleased with that. So what I think I'm going to do is change air cleaners and get an air cleaner to match. I'll do that blue as well. But before I put the valve covers on, I have special gaskets for that. And what I'm going to do is before I put it on, I'm going to make sure that the rocker arms have a good amount of lubes on there. I have some Federal Mogul lubrication here, and I'm just going to put some in each one of the rocker arms here to make sure that when it starts up, there's lube right inside there like this. Put it on top of the rocker arms, and then I will get a little bit, just let it run down onto the roller like that. And as soon as I get the valve cover on, I will turn the engine over several times to make sure that that roller is fully lubricated so it doesn't make any noise on startup. You want to have the least amount of resistance at startup, and this is a good thing to do before you put the valve cover on. So this is where I am right now. I sat the distributor in place, and I looked at the wiring here. First of all, there was some interference with the fuel line here, so I have to redo the fuel line. The wiring for the wiring harness here, there is a lot of wires underneath here. The wires that go in the back and come out this mess in the back of the engine are just completely scattered all over the place, and there's wires here that are not even going to be used. So what I'm going to do is this to make it easy. I'm going to take the wiring harness off. I'm going to flip it over. I'm going to work on the oil pan because I have to make a custom pickup because of the girdle there. The girdle's in the way of the pickup line. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to disassemble this entire wiring harness. I'm going to take apart all the convoluted tubing, separate all the wires, and I'm going to make my own wiring harness for this so that only the wires that go to the engine are the wires that are needed, and I can get rid of this mess of wires that are back here. I do need to hook it up to the computer, so I'll leave that, but I'll make sure that the only wires that come out of the firewall are wires that are going to be used. That's what I'm going to be working on now, and then I'll come back after I get the oil pan on. Alright, the oil pump is installed. As you can see, I have made the modifications to the pickup tube. There was a slight modification needed here by the girdle with the weld to get it to fit right, bolted on, and the pickup is all ready to go. I have the seals on the back, and when you do that, make sure you have the bearing cap cleaned underneath. Put a good anaerobic sealant underneath the bearing before you put it on to seal that bearing so no oil leaks through there. You put the back seal on after you get it off of the engine stand because it's hard to get on this way. But now I can put some a high tack on here just to hold the gasket in place on both sides. Make sure it sets up so it's not going to move. Then I can put my oil pan on and we'll be done with the bottom of the engine. My gaskets are in place. The sealant is the gasket high tack I put on there is dry. The gasket's not moving, so I don't have to worry about it shifting when I torque it down. I have some silicone RTV in the corners where the gasket's coming together all the way down. In the corner there's some silicone RTV, and the gasket's good to go on this side. Same thing on this side. Got some RTV in the corners sealing that, and the high tack is dried. And the gas is not going to move when I torque this down. That's what you want to worry about. We're ready to roll. I'll put the oil pan on, and then that should be it for the bottom side. Now with the oil pan mounted, I used all 12-point ARP stainless polished bolts, and they look gorgeous. I love that hardware. And I have a nice low-car flexible dipstick temporarily mounted here. This will get mounted onto the headers after the headers are put on, so that's temporary. But right now, what I would like to do is mount my coil to the front of the engine here. I'm not certain. I want to face it this direction so it faces the distributor, and what I'll have to do is make a bracket. So I got a piece of billet aluminum here. I'm going to make a nice bracket for that coil, put some standoffs on there and thread it, and I'll have a straight shot right at the distributor so that it will mount nice and clean out of the way, and the distributor wire, coil wire, will be a direct shot. Here's the coil mounted to the billet spacer and the billet block. It came out really, really nice. You can see I have a couple standoffs holding it out, bolting straight through to the coil. And I think it adds a great detail to that engine. I polished it all the way around on both sides, and it really looks cool. Little things like that add the detail to the engine, and I think it really makes it stand out. The last thing I'm going to do for this build right now is put on the wires, the coil wires, put in the plugs, and pretty much the engine will be built. That was the main purpose of this video series, was to build the engine, and I believe it's pretty much built. The following series will be about the wiring and the vacuum. Now I have all the ignition wires on, and I bought the aluminum red anodized wiring loom, and it really keeps the wires in very neat order so that when you get to the distributor, everything is nice and clean. You can see how all the way around how nice the wire looms look. Also, something I wanted to do is I wanted to try and get a little more original with the motor, and instead of the air cleaner I had on there, I got this 427. This is an actual 427 Cobra dual quad air cleaner. I powder coated the inside to make it look like the valve covers, but I had a problem. Since this came off a 427, the hole-to-hole distance between the two throttle bodies, or the two carburetors on which that would have been, was a lot bigger. This is the part that came with the air cleaner, and you can see if I if I lay that on there, you can see how much bigger the difference is on a 427 compared to this motor or this intake. So what I had to do is I had to take that's going to be useless to me, and I had to make this air cleaner part right here. This air cleaner part that was for this size. I was able to put the fitting on there for the EGR, breather valve, and that fits right on top of there like that. Nice and neat. I powder coated that chrome. So now, when I put the air cleaner on top, it fits, and I made adapters for the inside to expand the bolt so it goes hole to hole. So we got that air cleaner on there, and it looks a lot better than that stock Edelbrock air cleaner I had. So right now I'm going to finish up some vacuum lines, and then I'll have some parting comments, and that'll be it. And I'll take one last walk around the motor before I wrap it up. I have the breather line hooked up to the air cleaner. Those are Taylor 8mm ignition wires, custom cut. Got the chrome 1-wire alternator. All of the March pulleys in the March alternator bracket. Edelbrock high volume fuel pump with the EnduraShine finish. Of course the XL coil with the billet mount. Dual sync distributor underneath. The new Cobra air cleaner, dual quad intake. PCV, I'm sorry, PVC, PCV. I always get that mixed up. Hooked up to the bottom of the throttle body. PCV valve. And the wires on the left hand side of the motor. I got the blank for the fuel pump where the fuel pump used to go. The Canton oil pump, or the Canton oil pan with the low car billet dipstick coming around the back. You see the chrome spacers that I had made and the custom made air cleaner bottom. Now I have to finish the wiring harness, hook up the fuel regulator, and get it ready for the dyno. There's no fan on this motor. It's all air cooled with fans. That's why there's no fan on this motor. But that's it. The last thing I'm going to do before I button up the engine is I'm going to put in the drive for the oil pump. Now this is a standard hex that comes for the oil pump, and there's nothing wrong with using this. But since I'm using a higher performance engine and I'm expecting more torque out of it, I'm going to use a ARP drive. You can see it's a little beefier. If I hold these two next to each other, you can see the difference. You have the center section that's a lot thicker. It's a chrome moly drive, and I can be sure that this is not going to twist at all when I step on it. That can happen. That is possible. So what I'll do is I will take out the distributor. I'll drop this in, fill it up with oil, and I'll put a drill motor on here and turn the oil pump many times and circulate oil throughout the entire engine. Give it a good couple minutes so it gets on top of all the valves, gets on top of the cam, lubricates all the bearings. Drive it with a drill motor, high RPM. When I'm done, I can stop, get in place, drop the distributor in, and it's ready to go to the dyno. Getting it lubed up, getting lube all over the place is critical to make sure that when they do start it up on the dyno, that it doesn't make a lot of noise and you don't get excessive wear on startup. Last step right before you go to the dyno. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed watching this engine build from start to finish. I still have a few things to do, the fuel pressure regulator, all the wiring out the back, and then some vacuum lines, but this baby's ready for the dyno as soon as I get that done. And I'm hoping to get 600 horsepower. We'll see what happens when I get to that part. I'll make a video of the dyno, getting it set up and running it, and I'll show you how the performance is. But that's it for now. Thanks for watching.